The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, good evening, hello, how are you? This is All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you live, ladies and gentlemen, live, because that's just the way we do it over here at Armed Radio. Love that. I mean, how many podcasts go live? I don't know. Most, I think, people do their thing, spend days or hours, whatever it is, in the edit room, and then you get some perfect piece of what they would call content coming to you over the interwebs. And that's not the way we do it here, because I'm live. Live means that anything is possible, including errors, mistakes, ill humor, ill-advised commentary. Call it what you will, my friends. When you go live, you know, anything is possible. Now, that said, the theme is always deliciousness. And so we're going to do some things that are delicious this evening. But we start by telling you, when I say live, what is today, the 11th of March? Boom, and yeah. 11 March 2020. Lovely day here in New York City, where I'm coming to you from. 50. I think we missed the winter here. Normally, by now, we would have had, I don't know, days of snow, huge snow, snow days, snow plowing, salt in the street, slippery, sliding, sometimes beautiful, sometimes filthy, dirty, depending. But you know what? We haven't had any of that this year because the weather has been so mild that I don't even remember the last time that I saw snow in New York, and it might have been back even in December. I don't recall. Coming to you live, and we're in the middle of a crisis. You know that. We don't have to spend a lot of time discussing the fact that now we're officially in a global pandemic, and you cannot help but notice the abject panic running across the world, closing schools, shutting down communities, shutting down countries, my friend. Italy is on lockdown. This is a big thing, but rather than getting into kind of the socio-cultural aspect of it from the either the health or the kind of geopolitical issues that ensue, I'm seeing panic, and when I see panic, I can't help but notice certain behaviors, and one of them, for example, is that I was at Costco myself yesterday morning. I was at Costco in New Jersey. I got there, I would say, by 12 or 12:30, and when I went up to the, you check in, it wasn't brutally crowded as far as Costco goes. You know, they're lining up. Sometimes you see lines at these Trader Joe's. This wasn't quite like that. You know, by the time I got to the cash register, for example, there was maybe one person in front of me. So it wasn't like it was out of control. You know, shopping was pretty efficient and good and not a big crowd until I got over to the to the water section. Then all of a sudden there were 10 or 2, then there was a supermarket gridlock. You know, then there were a dozen of those shopping carts all assembled because people wanted water, understandably. And here's where you learned that there was a limit to certain supplies at the Costco, one of which was water. You were entitled, I believe, to 2 cases. If you were getting any other type of, cleansing product, antibacterial product, you were limited to just, 2 of whatever it was. This included paper products, which I can tell you because I walked up to the guy, one of the employees there, who was relatively close to where the paper would have been, in my search for a little bit of toilet paper, not honestly because I am desperate for toilet paper. I feel like I got enough, for probably a week or 2 weeks. And that assumes that I'm, highly regular. But the guy, I walked over to this guy, and before I even got to him, he looked at me and he said, "Come back tomorrow morning." I mean, that was like I didn't even tell him what I was there for. But I said to him, "It's toilet paper," and he said, "Yeah, sorry, it's you got to come back tomorrow morning. That's gone, and there's none in the back." So what we learned, of course, is not only that people are in a panic, but apparently that panic includes wiping your own butt, because all of a sudden toilet paper has become, first it was the cleanser. I understand that. The stuff you're going to clean your hands with, your disinfectants, your sprays, your wipes, your lotions, your whatever the freak it is. That stuff goes. You get that in the beginning. It makes sense. I understand it. The run on toilet paper for me came as somewhat of a surprise, because like as a guy that goes to Costco every single week of my life anyway, I am, as you might recall, the Costco hoe. But as a guy that shows up at Costco every single week, my interest there is in the food. Oh, sure, I will buy the occasional 6 pair of white socks. I might get myself a flat screen television, right? I've done that. You may go over there and pick up two of the most enormous containers, well, really of anything, but I'm thinking, mouthwash, whatever. Everything comes in the size for, summer camp. But generally, the reason that I am there is because I am going to pick up some chicken. I'm going to grab me maybe some turkey meat. They have some lovely seafood periodically. No, actually, not periodically. They have seafood all the time. You get to choose depending on what's coming in, fresh. Uh, they have the pork, the rack of pork over there is a beautiful thing. Chicken thighs by the gross. I mention this because if there were going to be some type of apocalypse, long before the toilet paper for me would be chicken thighs. And frankly, I spent my life kind of almost insistent upon the bone-in, skin-on chicken thigh, because there's a guy that cooks that's everything good, right? The bone is good because it brings flavor. The skin is good because it brings fat that can be both used to keep the actual chicken itself, the protein, moist, as well as when made crisp. I mean, hello, crisp chicken skin is an amazing thing. Sure, if you bread it and you fry it, that's going to be maybe even another whole level. But in general, the point of the story here, I digress off my own digression, is very simply that if I'm at Costco, or when I'm at Costco, I'm picking up 32 chicken thighs, generally bone in, skin on. But here's my confession to you food aficionado professionals. They do a boneless, skinless over there at your Costco. They do a boneless, skinless chicken thigh that is organic, and it cooks right quick. In where the bone in, skin on thigh is a commitment to 45 minutes in a 450-degree oven. The skinless chicken thigh, my friends, can be quickly cooked on top of the stove in better if you are using a heavy gauge, like a cast iron thing is great. But if all you have, fear not, if all you have is a relatively thin non-stick, saute pan, fry pan, call it what you want, that's fine too. To flavor your chicken thighs, in this case, with the bone removed and the skin removed, even though the meat itself still has more taste than any white meat ever will. The fact that you've taken out the bone and the skin means that you should really heavy up on however you're going to season the thing. Now, I'm going to make this point because I'm going to repeat some of these themes later when we get to tonight's kind of main subject is how to stock your pantry in an apocalypse, in an economic downturn, in a sequestration, in everybody is self-quarantined, you're not leaving your home for 2 weeks. I'm going to tell you right now, you got a chance to go out, and you probably shouldn't anymore go in public, according to what I'm hearing. But if you do go out, if you get yourself to a Costco, I'm going to tell you the kind of things that you want to pick up that are not only going to keep you fed for the next 2 weeks, but fed deliciously. I mean, that's the point of the story here. You are tuned into All You Can Eat. I'm Rob Rosenthal. And the reason that I hope that you come, or at least what it is that I hope to impart, is information, news that you can use. And I also forever, and from the very beginning of podcast number one, recommend products, services, tastes, books, articles, destinations, wines. Tools. I recommend the stuff that I, with 30 or 40 years of experience, find to be the best stuff out there. Won't recommend anything that I don't believe in. I never have. And in the interest of complete and full disclosure, if someone were to compensate me for some recommendation or endorsement, I would have to make the choice as to whether or not to accept it, number one. And let's say that I do, because whatever, money. But I would also tell you always that I was announcing for someone who compensated me in some way for the announcement. Costco doesn't and never will, and yet here I am telling you week in, week out. I love shopping there. In fact, even before we get into today's kind of central theme, a well-stocked pantry, I happen to be staring at two products that I purchased 2 days ago at Costco. I'm here to recommend them to you now. One is from a company called Flourish, or at least that's what it says at the very top of the bag, Flourish, and they are lightly salted veggie crisps. The subhead, if you will, on the purple packaging says toasted cauliflower with chickpeas, rice, and yellow peas, and then further down it says it's never fried. It's certified gluten-free. It is non-GMO, verified. This is 120 calories per serving. And then the question you always ask yourself is, how many of these things are in a serving? And I say most people, 120 calories, serving size of 28 grams, which is 30 of these things. I'll tell you something, that's good, because you eat 30 potato chips, you're eating 3 times as many calories as this, just as an FYI. But even if you don't care about calories, what I really like about these, of course, is the combination of a very delicious taste and beautiful texture. And that's, those are the 2 reasons, plus salt, that you're having what they call a salty snack. So Flourish veggie crisps made from toasted cauliflower with chickpeas, rice, and yellow peas. And I'm telling you what, I like it. I have now purchased 3 bags of the product. Good on you, Flourish. Never fried, gluten-free, non-GMO. $1.20 on the calories. Gotta like that. Also, in front of me right now, something else. Some people just adore peanut butter. I love it myself, and I came to it late in life. I was like 8, maybe 10. And I've transitioned to, I always have to be careful, but I literally have segued, if you will, from the peanut butter to the almond butter, which, that's why. And I would say I can't tell you which one it is because that's not here with me in the studio. But it's a Portuguese wine from, I believe, I want to say, it's very good. I was in Portugal as an aside here on a press trip for the purpose of floating around the country and tasting, eating their food and tasting their wine. And it had been known, it was always known to me as a place first and foremost for red wines, but I enjoy the white ones, frankly, more. So now I'm drinking sipping on a white product, a Vinho, I would say Vinho Branco, that's how they say it, yeah, from over. I'm going to have I know it's noisy, but I'm gonna have one or two of these toasted cauliflower chips. Yeah, super, light yet crunchy. Better to me than a rice cracker. I don't love a rice cracker. These are good. And great crunch and lovely taste. That's impressive. Yeah, used to have the peanut butter, moved to almond butter, have tried other nut butters, and then guess where I show up recently to find something different. Yes, it was Costco, ladies and germs. Costco. Kirkland brand, that's their in-store brand, Kirkland. And I'm looking at a jar right here of 765 grams, 27 ounces. This is a nice sized jar of mixed nut butter with seeds. I take this shiz home, and texturally, I'm going. This is a little different from peanut butter almond butter because those are thick. This is thick, but it moves. It moves. Here's why. These are the ingredients. It's almonds and cashews with pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds, and they blend it all up into a smoothness that comes out of the jar easier than I think either peanut butter or almond butter, and it's great, great. Kirkland mixed nut butter with seeds. You can't go wrong with that. Almonds and cashews. It makes a beautiful butter. Anyway, right. So let's get to the central premise here, which is we're in the middle of a global nightmare. I don't mean to be laughing, and I'm not, because it's a problem. I think, though, that, as I said to you before, if you are planning to stay at home, if you're into the self-quarantine, you're going to want to have things in your house other than toilet paper. I just don't understand why you would want to be left at home with a whole lot of toilet paper and nothing to eat. It's just backwards to me. It makes no sense to me. Ralphie's gone. It's a sad thing. You're going to want to have foods in your home that are packaged in cans. They come in boxes. They'll come in containers, and all of this is for a long shelf life, as you know. The ideal list of things that you should have, and I'm taking this, by the way, from my book. And then I'm going to add to that another resource, which is the New York Times. But when I wrote Short Order Dad 3 or 4 years ago, one of the sections was, here's what you should stock in the pantry so you can always have something delicious, even when you haven't gone shopping, like you have nothing in the fridge per se. So this is from my book. Immediately add flavor. Okay, the list should be composed of ingredients that immediately add flavor impact to anything else you might have lying around. So that's where various condiments and sauces come in handy, right? You're also going to want to include items that can be transformed directly into a meal, and so that's when pasta is there, even when there's nothing else available in the house. And then there's a couple of things here that I say, although not technically in your pantry, are things that are suggestions for what you might keep in the refrigerator as well. So here's my order, even though I confess that you would probably want to put some of the heavier things in first, meaning some of the boxes of pasta and the cans of different things. But that's not the order the way I put it in the book here. So condiments you're going to want to have. Now, again, I wasn't doing this for an apocalypse. I wasn't doing this for an isolation. I was just saying these are great things to have so that you always have flavor on hand. Soy sauce, right? Hot sauce. You can certainly, some people like their sriracha. Other people go for the Franks. I'm a big fan of the Franks. Whatever your hot sauce is, always good to have some of that around. I'm a huge fan of the Korean. You hear me talk about it a lot. The Korean chili paste known as gochujang. Huge flavor. Condiment is made with kind of like a fermented soy. The beauty of it is, honestly, that it offers you both heat, which is tempered by a little bit of sweet, so it's great with food. Mustard, get some mustard in your house. If you don't, obviously, okay, Dijon is good. Ketchup, capers, Worcestershire sauce. Okay, now let's talk about oils. You want good olive oil, which is as I say, indispensable when it comes to dressing and drizzling. Um, then there are going to be more then there's oils that are good to cook in. Like peanut oil is good to cook in. Then you have neutral oils that don't have a lot of taste or flavor, but you can cook things at a much higher temperature without worrying about the oil, overcooking and becoming not good in taste. So that's canola, that's grapeseed, that's safflower oil. So those kind of things. Then I think you want to have in your home sweet and sour elements. Vinegar important, honey or maple syrup, jams or jellies. I like you to have Nutella just because, Nutella. Not a bad idea to keep a bag of chocolate chips in your home. In cans, we want to have tomatoes. They can be chopped, they can be whole, they can be peeled, they can be San Marzano from Italy. And also in cans, this is important, you're going to have your beans, your tuna fish, and your tomato paste. All three items, by the way, beans, tuna fish, and tomato paste, available at Costco. I mean, seriously, you buy the beans by the 8-pack. So I have 8 cans, for example, right now of chickpeas. Why? Because chickpeas, out of a can with a quick rinse in your toaster oven for 7, 8, 12 minutes with some spice on it is just great. It's great solo, like popping in your mouth. It's great in a salad. It's great even in a dish. So you get beans. Tuna fish you buy. I bought mine the other day over at Costco. They have I don't remember the brand name. It's silver. It's from Italy. It's packed in olive oil, but you can certainly go with your bumble bee or chicken of the sea or whatever they got over there, right? You're going to want, and they also, tomato paste is great because I'm not getting into a whole discussion about umami, but tomato paste is great because it'll add some flavor to things that you're making. Other things that you're going to want to have in the house, because huge flavor hits, right? Olives, capers, different kind of nuts, whatever your, peanut butter, almond butter, fragrant, whatever your favorite is, that's what you're going to want to keep in there. Obviously, raisins are good to have. Breadcrumbs are good to have. Aromatics are good to have. Always, you should always have onions, garlic, and on hand. Have some carrots in the refrigerator. Potatoes have a good shelf life. Have some of those around. In your refrigerator, keep some eggs. Have some cheese. Whatever your cheese is. I like, I like old cheese. I can't think of cheese I don't like. Okay. You can put some bacon in that has a pretty long shelf life. You always want to have maybe a little butter around. I'm big on the tortillas. Whether you like corn or flour, I stick them in a drawer in the fridge. Keep lemons around for as long as you can, whether they're outside the fridge or in. A lot of flavor coming to you from lemons. In the freezer, I got peas. I think frozen spinach is good. Frozen breads or bagels. Bagged fruits are good for your smoothies. And, I always like to have a frozen pizza or two in there when there's nothing else. Costco sells those frozen pizzas with a cauliflower dough. I mean, is there not cauliflower? I mean, I'm looking at cauliflower chips. I'm talking to you about a cauliflower pizza. Trader Joe's has the cauliflower gnocchi. I go to restaurants, they're offering up cauliflower steak. When did cauliflower become basically everybody's ingredient for everything? There are 2 recurring themes in this show. If you don't count Costco, that would make it 3. One is cauliflower, and I forget the other. What else are you having in here? Dry herbs are good. I want to talk about herbs and spices because right after we have this discussion on the pantry, next up is herbs and spices that you want to have on hand. Not only that, I'm going to get you a discount from basically, one of the best companies in the market that sells herbs and spices, and you deliver them and has them delivered to your door. Keep your favorite stuff. It could be oregano. It could be whatever your dried stuff. Now, here's what you need to know about your oreganos, your thymes, your rosemaries, your tarragons, all your dried herbs. They're good in your shelf for 6 months. If they're sitting there for a year or two, do yourself a favor and dump them. They're out of flavor. You basically need to know that you want to have herbs and spices that have been not only nicely selected, curated as they say these days, but prepared, blended, milled right then and there before they get sent to you, because fresh is good. Period. That's why you're going to go to thespicehouse.com. And I'm going to come back to the Spice House, but what you need to know right now is thespicehouse.com. When you check out, I tell you, you look at that website and tell me you don't want to pick up a couple of those things. Regular, the spices, the blends, the flavorings, whatever. When you go to check out, put into your promo code all you can eat. Coincidentally, the name of this very podcast, all you can eat, that goes in your promo code, thespicehouse.com. When you buy yourself some herbs, whatever they may be, my friends, I love the berberine. I'm a big fan of Vadu Van, which is a French Vietnamese hybrid curry powder. Love that. Roasted a chicken just 2 days ago using simply the Vadu Van over every part of my bird. Roasted it in the air fryer for 1 hour, and man, I'd pay for that, man. That was good. Of course, I did pay for it, but this is just an expression I used to say. Whoa, that was some goodness. Anyway, love the Vadu Van. What else I talk about? Herbs de Provence give you the flavor of France. Then you can have I love the Latin spices as well. Ancho chili is a favorite of mine. Pimenton, the smoked Spanish paprika. And then they do blends over there. So check it out, spicehouse.com, and then check out with all you can eat for your 15% discount. Dried spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, cumin, paprika, chili powder, curry powder, cayenne, that'll spice you right there, peppercorns, and pepper flakes. So, those are the things. Now, that's what I said in my book. Then yesterday, or a couple of days ago, I see in the Times, the great Melissa Clark says, well-stocked pantry, good idea, sense of safety and control when the news, whatever. Okay, question is, what should you buy? Personal strategies. Pasta, she says, nice to have both long, thin pasta, and here she's referring to spaghetti or linguine. Spaghetti being kind of, round shape, and linguine being flat. Then she says maybe you want some short, textured pasta like fusilli or orecchiette on hand. Having both keeps meals from getting repetitive, and if you're a boxed mac and cheese fan, stocking a couple of those is not a bad idea. Rice. Brown rice, white rice, long grain rice, short grain rice. She has them all because she's a professional food writer for the New York Times. And plus she has arborio rice, which is the kind of rice that you would need if you were making risotto. Never a bad idea to make risotto. That's when you're committed, though, because if you make risotto, my friends, and I'm all for it. But you have to be prepared to stand for somewhere about 18 to 20 minutes, essentially stirring that risotto, that rice, as you add warm liquid in the form of stock to the pan that you're cooking the risotto in. You must let it absorb slowly a couple at a time, and the constant stirring is required for the most part. So that's a little bit more labor intensive. Then she talks about stocks and broths. Whether it's meat or vegetable-based, boxed broths, absolutely right. Essential for stews, stoups, and make the base of sauces. They don't take up freezer space. You can also get yourself, talking about taking up freezer space, is that, what do they call that stuff? Oh, better than bouillon. Yeah, strangely enough, they do sell that over at Costco. You'll be out to hear that. But yeah, better than bouillon. You can get like chicken, and you can get it as vegetable, and you take like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, whatever the measure is. I don't use it, and you add water to it. You have instant, stock rather than taking it out of the box. I go out of the box because the Costco happens to have chicken stock / broth in two different varieties. One of them is organic, one of them is salt-free. If I recall, I just saw this the other day. Good to have. Then she says beans. I had mentioned to you the chickpeas. You can get whatever kind of beans you like. She said home-cooked dry beans taste better than canned ones. Honestly, once a decade do I actually make beans that come dry. That's just my thing. I'm okay with what's coming out of the can on the bean thing. But I understand because I've made soup, probably a black bean I made. dried beans, and then what's the other kind? Anyway, cured meats, keep in the weeks in the fridge, and a chunk of smoked ham or salami in your bean pot. They had so much flavor. I don't have a bean pot. Don't forget the bacon. I had already mentioned the bacon, and I'll throw another one in just because it's one of my Costco staples. Is the prosciutto di Parma, thin slices of really lovely Italian prosciutto ham. Slices are separated by little white sheets, make it easy. Two different packages means that you only open one at a time. But it is like, I look at it as meat candy. Like if I were a kid, I'd be popping like a little, what do you pop to? Like a peanut, like a mini peanut butter cup would be good if I were a kid, or something that was like, well, now as an adult, I'll have a slice of prosciutto because that is meat candy, adult meat candy. She has on here the great Melissa Clark eggs. Welcome addition, of course, long time in the fridge. Frozen fruits I mentioned to you. She throws blueberries and that kind of thing. She also throws in here frozen veg. I love frozen peas, and I make I make pea soup a lot, and so you need a big thing of frozen peas. I've used frozen corn, frozen Brussels. I don't know because I prefer to actually have fresh Brussels. They're just so good and easy. Honestly, cut them in half, throw them in the oven with olive oil and salt, maybe a little of the aforementioned bacon or garlic. You got goodness right there. It's a beautiful thing. Um, what we're talking about, right? Veg. Oh, here's a veg I like though. You get the frozen artichoke hearts, and I'll tell you why. Because you spray them with a little something. You spray them with a little, avocado oil, olive oil, duck fat in a can. Woo! Get your hands on that, my friends. And you take your frozen out of the freezer. Well, that's why they're frozen. Take your little artichoke heart sections, spray them with some kind of one of your oils, and put them in, your toaster oven. Put them in your regular oven. I put them in my, my Easy Bake thing there, my Power Air Fryer. Get them all crisp up. Salt, it's a very good thing. Canned fish, sardines, tuna, salmon, anchovies, blah, blah, blah. Tahini and peanut butter. I mentioned peanut butter. She says tahini. Don't forget to get yourself some jam. Parmesan and other hard cheeses. Exactly. I don't know why she throws cream cheese in there too, because that's not hard, but she said it's nice if you're having bagels. I don't know how long it lasts, but hard cheeses, sure, whether it's Parmesan or cheddar or whatever your thing is, the Spanish manchego. Olive oil, yes. Multiple oils, I think. Vinegar, yes. Lemons, I've told you all about that. We agree. Nut and dried fruit for snacking. Flour, sugar, yeast, sure, if you're a baker. I don't think that way, so that's why I didn't mention it. Butter will keep 4 weeks in the fridge and even longer in the freezer. Couldn't agree more. Obviously, the aromatics, garlic, onion, and shallots, great. Must have those at all times, by the way. I mean, that's not just for a disaster. Root vegetables are smart, okay? Why? Because they last. Listen, potatoes, sweet potatoes by the truckload. She says beets, carrots, parsnips, turnips, radishes, all that kind of stuff. Celery, sure. Scallions, great. And then she closes with something that we've touched on, and we're going to now go into more detail, which is spices. She says, if you can't remember, although there's a typo in the Times, if you can't remember when the last time you bought new spices was, consider buying some the next time you're at the store. Fresh spices have so much more flavor than your old ones. So that's a little commentary from Melissa Clark in the March 6th edition of the New York Times food section. And with that, and you heard my recommendations, which come alongside, 250 other pages worth of highly valuable information in the book known as Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. It is a book that I wrote some years ago based on the idea that you should get the most taste with the fewest ingredients and the least effort. 6 things, 6 words. It's all you need to know. Most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. Because that is the way I cook. And so 2 things to know. One is that of the 100 recipes in that book, Short Order Dad, the vast majority, 90 or 95% of them use 5 or 6 ingredients max. That said, I love cooking with two or three. And the easiest way in the world to do that, the easiest and most effective way in the world to do that, is to use spices. And here's the cheat, if you will. I could put one spice on a chicken thigh, aforementioned chicken thigh. I could put one spice on there. I could put, for example, ancho chili powder on a chicken thigh, plus salt. And I'd roast that at a high temperature for, they're not coming for me, don't worry. This is just New York City. It's live. There are going to be, at some point, the sounds of a siren. I could make the studio more airtight, but I actually like air, especially in these days. Be happy that we're breathing fresh air for the moment. Global. What was I saying? Yeah, I could use one ingredient and one ingredient only. I could use the aforementioned pimenton, smoked Spanish paprika, on a chicken thigh. Put the thigh in the oven with salt. 450, 475, I don't care, till it gets crazy smoky. In my case, the fire alarm tends to go off. That's why I know it's time to turn it over and shut off the oven and let it keep crisp for a while. You're looking at 40, depending, but you're looking at, 40 minutes, to an hour, depending how your oven is, depending how many thighs you use. But one simple ingredient will transform an otherwise ordinary chicken thigh into a culinary wonderland. Just a scrumptious, kind of delightful, flavor-filled meal. Now, that's not all, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a concept called the spice blend. I'll be damned. Somebody, pretty much everybody in the started putting spices together with other spices. And so as you go around the world, if you're in any kind of, part of the Indian world, you're going to end up having a curry of some sort. And that curry is a combination of a whole lot of different flavors, spices, herbs, aromatics, right? And, anytime you talk about, somebody doing a rub, like when somebody does a rub on a brisket or on a slab of ribs, when they do a dry rub on it, it's not just one thing or another. That rub has 10 different spices in it. I mean, when I talk about 2-ingredient cooking, and again, I will bring you back to chicken thighs. I like that as the example, but it doesn't have to be. If you say, "Hey, Rob, do me a favor, come up with another example," because I don't love dog meat. I feel for you, but you can do this with other white meats, and you can do this with steak if that's your thing. Whether it's pork, whatever the protein is, and it doesn't always have to be protein. Of course, it can be tofu, unless you count that as protein. It could be vegetables. The point of the story is, if I talk about 2-ingredient cooking, I could take a simple, piece of pork and hit it up with some spice blend and grill the heck out of it until it's just seared and lovely on the outside and still pink and juicy on the inside, and yet it has this incredibly complex, just loading up your senses flavors, because the rub that is used, has 10 different flavors going for it. The Spice House, thespicehouse.com, is where you go. Now, let's say, for example, I'm going to the site, right? Let's say you go and you go to the Spice House homepage, and you see across the top that one of your options is blends. So just for fun, right? I'm going to hit blends. And here's the crazy part. This is what I like that you've done over here at the Spice House, right? As soon as I hit blends, the sub-menu that shows up is, you can kind of sort here, search, by use or by flavor or by ingredient, right? So, for example, if you wanted a blend that was going to be good to flavor lamb, because you just happen to have gotten back from Iceland, you would go, or New Zealand, you would hit the lamb thing here. If you wanted to sort and search by flavor, You could, and that flavor means, do I want to get it from, do I want it spicy blend? Do I want a Latin and Caribbean blend? Do I want a European or African and Middle Eastern blend, or even, a salt-free? Or you can even sort slash search by use. So, for example, what are the blends for baking versus barbecue versus dips and dressing versus rubs and marinades? So I'm taking you, we're going to go through this together, but by use, let's go. Barbecue, dips, rubs, and marinades. Toppings. Let's just look at rubs and marinades here on the spicehouse.com. Perfect amount of salt, heat from chilies, fragrant herbs, or spice rubs impart complex flavor profiles. That's the idea. Well, now we're going to get a little fancy. Okay, we don't have to get fancy. Salt-free adobo, Baharat. I use Baharat myself, Baharat. I use it because it's a Middle Eastern spice blend, and it has all of those flavors that, well, to be honest with you, I kind of don't use a lot of individually, but if you want the flavor of the Middle East, man, well, let me tell you what's in it so that it doesn't. All right, so here we go. So I use it. North Africa does have Ras El Hanout. Yeah, I find it very kind of similar to that. Baharat is a lamb rub that is made with, they're calling it lamb. I use it in sweet potatoes. Oh, meat dishes, vegetables, couscous, etc., etc. So here are your ingredients. You get Tellicherry black pepper, coriander, cumin, cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, Spanish paprika, and Chinese tianjin chili peppers, right? So you're getting all of those flavors in one blend. That, for example, is a Baharat. Now, what else do we like here? Cajun seasoning, sure. Extra hot Cajun seasoning. Citrus chili rub. Carne asada steak seasoning. Let's see what else is Mexican chorizo seasoning is interesting to me. Let's see what else I use. Well, I use herbs de Provence a lot, because if you have ever been to the south of France, I'll tell you this: you know that they cook well, and they have beautiful food in and around Provence, and that's because they're growing an awful lot of beautiful herbs and spices there. So you want to instantly make your chicken breast better, right? You basically only need herbs de Provence. And if the herbs de Provence don't come to you with salt in them, I'm going to tell you that you're going to need salt too. But suppose that you have a chicken breast and you go, I don't know, I'm bored with whatever. You hit it up with salt. You put a little lubrication in your saute pan and your fry pan. You hit your chicken breast up with salt. Pound it a bit because, thinner, cooks quicker. It's nothing wrong with that. Salt it. Hit it up with your herbs de Provence. Sear both sides of this baby until it's cooked all the way through, however many minutes that is. Could be 4, could be 8, depends on the thickness and the heat. And then put a little squeeze of, lemon at the end of it. It's just delightful. Love me some herbs de Provence. You can put it also in salad dressing. Use it in your eggs. Sprinkle it over, asparagus, roasted asparagus. Mediterranean rubs. Oaxacan ancho coffee rub. I'm going to be trying that because I have it, but I haven't tried it yet. What else do you have here in the blends? I do. Oh, here's rubs and marinades. What else you got there? Oh, peri-peri, that's going to be spicy. Ras El Hanout is also one of those Moroccan blends that is fantastic. I have mentioned before to you, let me see where they put my berbere here. Okay, let's go Africa and go over there. Africa and Middle East, Baharat berbere. Okay, so I talk about berbere a lot, and here's why. I was introduced to it by a guy named Marcus Samuelson, who's a kind of a famous television chef who owns a restaurant here in Harlem called the Red. I was only there 2 nights ago. I ought to be able to remember. Red Rooster, okay, in Harlem. A fantastic, lively place with music going on, people having a good time, cocktails, drinks. I like it a lot. But anyway, I met him and I asked him to recommend something to me that would solve my problem for most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. And he said, Burberry. What's that? I said, well, it's from, where he is from. which is, Ethiopia. And they've blended together a spice that has in it paprika and onion, fenugreek seed, fenugreek leaf, salt, chilies, shallots, garlic, cinnamon, pepper, ginger, cardamom, nutmeg, cumin, allspice, and cloves. So when I say, a great meal with only 2 ingredients, guess what? One of those ingredients has 12 ingredients. But what's the difference? The difference is, to you, it's 2 ingredients. To me, it's 2 ingredients. I make generally all the time, and if you've heard me before, I hope that this is not going to bother you. But said chicken thighs, chicken wings. Let's go with chicken wings. You hit them up a little bit with that Frank sauce for lubrication, and then I bang this beurre all over them, so that they're coated now with only 2 things. All right. So with the chicken wings, you now have 3 ingredients, but you don't need salt on this one because the Frank's has it. So you hit up your chicken wings with Frank's just to give them some lubrication. You sprinkle them with a good amount of the beurre. You put it in a hot oven, and when one side looks like it's crispy as heck, flip the wings over to the other side and let it keep cooking. And when it looks like it's almost cooked, you know what? Turn off the heat, leave them in the oven until they get crispy, until they're irresistible, until the smell draws you, and the look, and you look at them and it draws you in. And you take one out, and it's a little too hot, but you eat it anyway. And the skin, crisp skin, kind of crackles in your mouth as you're starting to get, a little bit of heat up the nose from the Franks, and then the Burberry kicks in with, like, what is it, 10, 15 different flavors coming at you, and then the kind of loveliness of the chicken together with the crispiness of the skin. I mean, this is just beautiful. So, what you do now, my friends, is you head over to the spicehouse.com. Look for yourself. You don't need to hear from me. Look for yourself. If you have the stuff that in your own cabinetry, if you happen to have herbs and spices, and you happen to have had them for longer than 6 months, it's your time. Get rid of them and get yourself some new stuff here. I love the pimentone, that's the Spanish paprika, and the ancho together with some salt on the chickpeas. You rinse the can of chickpeas, right? You can or don't have to give them a little hit of oil and shake them around. I make them in the toaster oven pan. That's fine. If your spices don't have salt, you give them a sprinkle of salt. I hit them up with one of 2 combinations. I either go with this kind of ancho chili powder, which is not too spicy, but super flavorful, and then I'll hit them up with some of the pimentone, which gives them a smokiness. Or, skipping all that, I'll go right into that Trader Joe's chili lime seasoning. They got chili in there, they got lime, they got probably salt in that thing, so that's another blend. But that and chickpeas, 2 ingredients to super happiness. How long do you cook them? I'll tell you how long. Till you look at them and you go, they look like they're a little toasty on the outside, and yet I try to keep them just a little bit of mushy on the inside, because that textural contrast between the little bit of crispiness on the outside with the lovely flavoring that you've given it in that toaster oven with a little bit of the softness inside, all of a sudden you go, you know what? I never thought about chickpeas before I thought about these. Like, all of a sudden, these are fun. They're fun to eat with a cocktail. They're fun to put in your salad. I don't know. You may consider other uses for them. Like, as you're finishing roasting that Moroccan chicken, that you've made with, the Ras El Hanout, or perhaps the Baharat spice. Maybe you throw the chickpeas in at the very end, in the last 10 minutes, so that they're part of the sauce, and they get a little bit of that heat and a little bit of that texture. So that's that. Okay, so go to thespicehouse.com, search around, find the things you like, go to checkout, and it'll say you got a promo code, and you'll go, sure I do, I know Rob. I listen to All You Can Eat. Oh, All You Can Eat. That is the promo code. And then 15% miraculously comes off your order, and you tell them where you live, and, whatever, a day or 2 later, beautiful package shows up at your place, and it's filled with flavor. I mean, that's what it's all about. Uh, as long as we're on the subject, by the way, I've said it before, also consider grabbing yourself some of the gochujang. It's the condiment, and it's kind of spicy and kind of sweet. It's the Korean condiment, and it is good. I mean, I use it in a stir fry. I use it if you're going to make like an Asian kind of marinade. There's a recipe in my book that uses it with string beans that get roasted. Um, that's good. The gochujang is good, and I mention it because I came across this recipe for three ingredient. So when I see three ingredient, I'm already paying attention. But listen to this. In the Washington Post, gochujang is the spicy star in this three ingredient skirt steak recipe. Okay, so first of all, if they're good, meaning whoever's posting, the article, the next thing that you see is the most delicious platter of skirt steak that you had ever seen, with a color on it that you just can't help but go, yes. I mean, it's like that deep orange red that you just look at it and you go, I know I'm going to like the way that tastes, right? Gochujang skirt steak, second set of sirens right now in the backyard as the New York police are on job, on duty and protecting the public. That's what they do. We love our policemen here in the city. No joke. Okay, overview. Skirt steak is thin. That simply glazing exterior will give you lots of flavor in each bite. Gochujang, Korean fermented chili paste, blended with honey, in this case, makes an ideal glaze, delivering sweet, spicy, and umami in just two ingredients. It settles into the nooks and crannies of the meat and caramelizes once it hits the hot, hot heat. You ready for this, my friends? 1 pound of skirt steak. Get it. Get it wherever you go shopping. It's easy. Used to be cheap. They've made it not cheap anymore. And again, what is? 1 pound of skirt steak, 1 teaspoon of your kosher salt, maybe more. 3 tablespoons gochujang, Gochujang. Get gochujang. 3 tablespoons of honey and a tablespoon of canola oil, right? So it's a 5-ingredient recipe. But that counts, salt and your oil. So here's what is the suggestion: cut skirt steak into 5 to 6 inch pieces. Pat it dry. Season it with the salt. In a shallow bowl, stir together gochujang and honey. Add the skirt steak and coat the mixture. Coat with the mixture. Step 3: heat a little oil in that large cast iron skillet over medium-high heat until it's lightly smoking. Add the steak and cook undisturbed. Oh, I love that instruction. Leave the steak undisturbed until charred, 3 to 4 minutes per side. Right. So a lot of people make the mistake. I understand it. We're anxious. We're eager. We got tongues in the hand. There's a steak in front of us. Let it sit there undisturbed for 3 to 4 minutes until you get a nice char. Then you can flip it one time. Let it sit undisturbed again until it's ready. Pull it off too early. Pull it off a little bit early. You can always put it back on if you feel that it's undercooked. It generally is not, especially if you got a good sear on both sides. Step 4: transfer the steak to a cutting board to rest for a few minutes. The rest is important, as you all know by now, that when you take hot protein out of the oven or off the heat there, you got to let it sit for a few minutes, let those juices regenerate and come back. Very important. Then you're going to thinly slice this baby against the grain. If you need a little hit of salt, you go ahead and put it on there. We like to use, in this case, kind of like big salt crystals. It's more for, so you want to almost get a little bit of salt taste, sure. But what you really want here is you add a little bit of crunch. That's why they use that fleur de sel for the sea salt. But you can certainly, kosher salt is fine. It has a bigger, the bigger the crystals, the better, because it'll give you a little bit of crunch over there. So anyway, there's your kind of steak gochujang recommendation for today. Not complicated. Skirt steak is good. I mean, you can. Here's the other thing, by the way. The other way you can play skirt steak, because what you have with skirt steak is a lovely piece of steak, but it's one that actually does well with a good, with a good, spice or marinade or like a chimichurri on the side. That you can kind of give it a little bit of extra zooms, right? You get yourself a piece of rib steak, ribeye. You know what I'm talking about? You get yourself some prime stuff there, some real beef, bone, whatever it is your favorite big old piece of meat is. Less is more. You do not want to be using, if you ever see anybody like kill a steak, or you know what, I don't want to get into that. Here's the point: you get a great piece of meat. It needs a little bit of salt. You're good. You start getting into any other type of cuts, and some really adapt well to flavoring. Certainly, skirt. Is that what they're calling this one? Yeah, skirt. Yeah. Certainly, skirt steak is one of those, and this is easy, right? Because you throw a little honey and gochujang together with salt and oil, and you're having a good time. Well, I got to be honest with you. When I came on this evening, I had no clue. I mean, I had a clue that we had some things to talk about here on episode 75. But it took me a while to get to them. And basically what it had to do with is that if you need to, stock up your pantry, my friends, you know kind of the things that you can get. And if you need to add flavor, you know where to go. So you got that going. That's from the Spice House. If you need to find me, ever, you can get me right here where you're at right now. Wednesday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's on Armed Radio. But then, soon enough, this very episode will show up for you on iHeart Radio. So if you search for podcasts, you can look for All You Can Eat or Rob Rosenthal. And equally, as quickly and efficiently, sometime tonight or tomorrow morning, you go to Spotify podcasts and you go, All You Can Eat? Yep, that's Rob Rosenthal, who has just completed for you episode number 75 of All You Can Eat. As I like to say, it's the podcast about deliciousness, and I am your recommendation engine, meaning that I am here to offer you and my insights and advice on some of the best and most delicious things in life. With that, I will look forward to being back with you next time. And in the meantime, remember this, my friends, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man.